This week on LTC News, a fresh start for city government.
That's what you want on the city council, a mix of experience and new ideas. And I think that that's what we have going forward over the next 2 years.
Next steps toward a new high school.
June would be when we'd present the earliest that we'd be presenting our final package of all the schematics, all the kind of, and it will be a very thick piece that gets submitted to MSBA for their final consideration and approval.
And a world premiere at MRT.
It tackles some real life events that were certainly hard and traumatic, but I think it's hilarious. I think it's really funny.
I am Cambodia.
Stay with us.
I'm like, yo, what?
Welcome to LTC News. I'm your news anchor, Alanna Flood. January 2nd was Inauguration Day in Lowell. Every 2 years, new officials are sworn in with pomp and circumstance.
Whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight.
Faithfully and impartially discharge all duties
incumbent on me as a counselor for the city of Lowell.
The new councilors called out their votes for mayor.
John Lee.
Councilor-elect Kennedy.
William Samaras.
It wasn't unanimous, but Councilor William Samaras won the honor.
I feel that over the next 2 years, we must work together to bring this community back together. There are also many other issues that the City Council will have to deal with. We will continue working on the good work already achieved on public safety and economic development. As a City Council for the past 4 years, I've seen that much of the most important work City Councils do is through the subcommittee process. With that experience in mind, as mayor, I propose the establishment of several new subcommittees with the approval of the City Council.
After the mayor's comments, the council then selected the city council vice chair.
Vice Chair, President.
Going forward, I think, we need to listen to people concerned and not wish them away. We need to bring more voice into the discussion how to make the city better. High school is one of the issues, but there are other issues that we need to address, such as the current voting system that the mayor spoke of, the mayor-elect spoke of. We need to have maybe a diversity subcommittee to look into a hiring process as a city. How do we reach out and hire more diverse group of people to work for our city? Looking at public safety, I know that we've done well, but we need to build on that success that we have. Economic development, Hampton Canal, we need to really engage and push it forward so that it can, be a tax basis for our city.
I think we have certainly a full agenda of items before us, but like other councils in the past, the city comes together, we can agree to disagree, but on the big issues, it's important for us to come to compromise and support interests and issues in the best interest of the city.
My hopes is to continue to move Lowell forward in a healthier, stronger way. I'm really excited to be on City Council, and I look forward to my next 2 years.
There's 3 city councilors that have retired and 3 new ones to come on. So there's always an influx of new blood and new ideas, which, that's what you want on the city council, a mix of experience and new ideas. And I think that that's what we have going forward over the next 2 years.
And then it was the school committee's turn. They were sworn in by the first justice of the Lowell District Court, the Honorable Stacy Portis.
Congratulations.
I believe a good education does open doors for individuals, but good schools are important to all of us because providing our children with the best education possible is the only way to ensure our community will continue to thrive.
Well, I think it's going to be very challenging in the next 2 years. We're going to have some budget issues. We have the ongoing location for the high school. But I'm looking forward to the challenge. I'm looking forward to serving the students of the city and working with the administration.
We will try to do the best we can for the student of Lowell, for everybody in Lowell. So in the next 2 years, there will be a lot of issues. I think the high school issues remains, and we will try to do the best we can just for the best of the students.
It will be interesting to see how the new elected officials will work together to improve the quality of life in the city of Lowell. The Merrimack Repertory Theater is staging the world premiere of the one-man play called Kin Yum. It's the story of a young Cambodian man working the graveyard shift in a New York City hotel while trying to make sense of the legacy of genocide in Cambodia. Back in December, cast, crew, and cohorts of Kin Yum met at MRT's offices on Warren Street downtown.
Taryn Kimmel, Director of Marketing.
Nick Kane, Interim Director of Development.
They gathered for the first table read of this one-man play starring the play's author, Vichet Chum.
Good evening. Thank you for calling Hotel East Houston. How can I... Son, are you there? Son, this is bad. Why you not pick up the phone when I call you?
Kin Yum is about a young Cambodian man working graveyard shifts at a hotel in New York City. And in this space, he encounters his dreams and those of his parents, who are survivors of the genocide in Cambodia.
Cambodia barely occupied a paragraph, an afterthought of the Vietnam War. So what if that afterthought is your origin story?
Cambodian Americans, first generation Cambodian Americans, I know they struggle with that sort of question of how do I move forward with this legacy?
1/4 of the population died from execution, starvation, and disease.
It tackles some really tricky things. It tackles some real life events that were certainly hard and traumatic. But I think it's hilarious. I think it's really funny.
I am Cambodia. And I'm like, yo, what?
Our media designer is mapping, so we can put an image on the front of the desk.
We've come to expect fresh and exciting stage design and sets from MRT Productions, and this show is no exception.
There are several segments of the play that take place in Guy's imagination and in these dreams. And so what we're doing here is we're constructing a world where video projection can be cast onto our set.
But when you're up there,
Does it want to feel like a memory, and how do you make a video projection look like a memory?
taking the sheen off is the right thing to do.
So it's a little bit of thinking like the director of a film every once in a while in the middle of building a theatrical experience. And what makes it uniquely theatrical is that we have no idea that we're going to be transported in the ways that we are. So every time the video projection comes on, what we want it to do is to surprise all of us.
Theater is all about telling stories, and Kin Yum's principals all agree that it was time to tell this one, particularly under the current Trump administration.
And I woke up the morning after the election, and it really felt like it was clear to me that telling stories of people that don't look like us is the most important thing that any of us could be doing at this moment.
There are not a lot of Asian American stories. There's certainly not a lot of Cambodian American stories out there. I felt like it was my responsibility as an artist to take on that and to really write for my people.
Vichet is also very much a poet, and so he wrote these poetic flights. And so all we had to do was serve the beautiful play he had already written.
And this is actually my very first big play that I've written myself.
There are stilted houses with woven bamboo walls and thatched roofs.
And I firmly believe that this production puts ourselves on stage. It just depends on what we describe as us, right? Us, to me, is a country that's a mosaic of many different skin colors, experiences, cultural origins.
I want Cambodians to come see the show because I am them, and I am their son, and I am their brother, and I am sharing a story that is so much about my family, and Cambodians are all about family.
And then people will finally be able to locate Cambodia on a map.
MRT, putting this play on this stage, it is saying to the community, we hear you, we see you, you matter, and you're welcome here. And I think that's pretty huge.
UMass Lowell and some private donors have subsidized tickets so that Cambodian high school and college students will be able to attend. The play runs through February 4th. Now that the new City Council and school committee are in place, and after the very strongly pro-downtown referendum results, plans for the new high school are moving forward in a new direction. In December, a group from Lowell, representing the City Council and the school committee, as well as the manager and the superintendent, met in Boston with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. At the meeting, the Lowell delegation updated the MSBA on the change in the site preference, and the MSBA gave them their recommendations for next steps in the process. To learn what those next steps are, we spoke with Superintendent Kalfawi and Connie Martin of the school committee.
When I went to the MSBA meeting, and I was sitting at the table, that my understanding is that they got the message really clear that the people of Lowell wanted it to be downtown, and that they encouraged us to resubmit, and that they would have no problem with us resubmitting, and they will help with whatever technicality it is. What I got is that they really wanted it to, like, okay, if we're gonna go through all this work of resubmitting, let's do it right. You know, let's explore all the possibilities, so we're not back here in 6 months from now say, oh, you know what? Yet within downtown, there's a little variation that we want to do. Why don't you folks look at all of them and make up your mind, and let's do a thorough job. There was a majority of the people were looking at a certain option that required an eminent domain. I think everyone is interested, including the MSBA, at that process. How is that process going to be unveiled?
We could make a change if we if the between the building committee and the council and perhaps even the school committee, it's an option. But the sense that I've certainly had is that mainly because of the referendum and the way that it was structured, really did very clearly speak to option 3, I believe, and the downtown option exclusively, which does put us in the position where we need to kind of reconvene, look at that option again, and start making some final decisions. This process was never destined to be quick, and that's irregardless of the drama that had come up in terms of the actual siting. So this is not something where we're going to be putting shovels in the ground in the next couple months. We do still need to do our due diligence and work with Skanska, who are our design partners, and the real experts in this building field, so that they'll be able to really tear into what is going to be necessary for this renovation rebuild at the downtown location. What continues is the school building committee will continue meeting on a very regular basis. I believe it's monthly. June would be when we'd present the earliest that we'd be presenting our final package of all the schematics, all the kind of, and it will be a very thick piece that gets submitted to MSBA for their final consideration and approval at the MSBA board meeting in June. If that happens, then you're talking, these are all going to be estimates, but you're talking at least another year to, I would say, maybe even a year and a half before you really have shovels in the ground. It's a very long process.
We have to be very careful that the implementation is going to disturb the least, and give us the least disturbance, that we still preserve the quality of the teaching during the next few years during the construction stage, because these kids deserve a quality education regardless whether there is something being constructed or not.
It's going to be complicated because of the nature of needing to shift students and all that. We all recognize that, and ultimately it's going to take time, because there is absolutely no opportunity to do anything but the exact right way. Any mistakes we make, we will pay for 50 years. So taking the time to make sure that everything is done and done well, and done to the standards that the city really will require of us, I think is going to be time well spent.
For more on the school committee's plans, let's go to the Sunspot with Lowell Sun Enterprise editor Chris Scott, who speaks with school committee vice chair Jackie Doherty.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Scott from The Sun. Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of Sunspot, and Happy New Year to you all. With me is school committee member Jackie Doherty. This is her second appearance on Sunspot. I think you were on sometime last fall before the election talking about what else? The high school. So why don't we start with the high school? We've had several votes since the election, the referendum. The city council recently voted to do a U-turn, and now it looks like it's going to stay downtown in some way, shape, or form. Just how do you see the issue shaping up in the new year?
Well, I think we need to move forward, obviously, and the next steps will entail how we do that with the Mass School Building Association. My understanding is they want us to review some of the other options about the downtown location before we, make a clear, decisive action with the what I think is the best option, which would be option three.
Three, correct. Yeah.
And that is the one that requires the eminent domain taking of the dentist office, which I know there's been some controversy around that. But I think that...
Just a little bit.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we really have to do what's going to be best for the city long term and the high school long term, meaning our families, our students, and I think that clearly is option three. How long that process takes, I really couldn't say at this point, but my understanding is we're ready to begin again.
What do you read into the School Building Assistance Bureau urging the city to take a look at other options other than option three?
Well,
do you read anything into that?
I saw the letter. I'm sure you saw the letter, and to me, it was just kind of an aside. I don't think it was a real directive, so much as maybe in between the lines saying, let's be sure you know what you're going to do now. So I don't take it as putting a whole lot of time into reviewing all the options that involve the downtown. I think we need to do a much deeper dive in how we're going to renovate the high school, how option three plays in the phasing of the construction, because keep in mind we're going to have 3,200 students going to school there during the renovation, and that is something that I think we need to pay close attention to.
Are you confident as a school committee member, and it's new vice chairman, correct?
Yes.
You got that esteemed post last week or the week before, voted by your colleagues, and we can talk about that in a minute. But are you confident moving, say, within 2 or 3 or 4 months, that there will be a definitive plan that has been approved by the School Building Assistance Bureau, and the city will be moving forward? Or do you think that it will just be kind of grinding along?
Well, confident in something that I don't really have control over. I'm a little wary to make that commitment, but I'm certainly hopeful that we can move forward. We've gone through this feasibility study. We've already invested millions of dollars in that. We had a decisive vote on the election day, that people really came out in strong force showing that they thought the downtown was the fairest, most equitable, cost-effective option for the city. So my hope would be that we move quickly, go through the steps we need to go through, and do our due diligence to do the best job we can. Of course, we want to be cost-effective, we want to be time-effective, and we want to have a result that is a state-of-the-art, advanced high school that's going to impact generations of Lowellians.
The high school has been in the news recently, as you're well aware, for not having sufficient heat on one of the coldest snaps of the year. And of course, the Cawley backers are quick to try to connect the two, that if Cawley had been chosen, maybe the boiler would have stayed on. But
that makes no sense.
It makes no sense. We both know that, and I think most of our viewers do as well. However, that must have been concerning for you as a school committee member, and it wasn't just at the high school. There were some other schools that had some issues too, correct?
I think that's really the key point, and certainly for me, I think you're aware, Chris, I've been around for a while. I've served 10 years on the school committee, and before that, very involved in the citywide parent council. Maintenance issues have always been a concern. I think we've hit a tipping point now, and the attention we're getting because of the high school is helping us to really take some proactive action. Let's move forward and come up with a maintenance plan and a strategy, not only for maintaining the high school heat, we absolutely need to do, but all the other school buildings that are also having serious maintenance issues. And I would think that the fact that we actually had to close school for a day at the high school is huge. Mm-hmm. It's huge. I think we've been cobbling along for a while now, as in decades. And we've got to a point where the rubber meets the road. We have to start to invest, and when I say we, I mean the city has to invest in maintaining its buildings, all its school buildings. So the high school got the attention, and we actually closed it one day because more than 20% of the classrooms didn't have sufficient heat, but many of our other school buildings also have maintenance issues, and I'm really excited by what this gives us as an opportunity as a school committee and as a community to, really tackle this issue, because regardless of what happens, or we have a new high school, we need to maintain that building as well. So,
are you aware of a study that's being done by the city to figure out how the city can put more effort toward the maintenance of effort? I thought I heard the city manager talk about that one day recently. Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of a study that he's doing, but I know that we've been working closely with the city to review our maintenance of effort agreement. It's been more than 10 years since we looked at it again, so it definitely is in need for updating. I think the challenge that the city faces, we're not a rich city. Raising taxes is never popular, and when you're looking at budget cuts, coming up with reasonable budgets every year, the last thing you want to cut is personnel. So you go to places like, your budget for maintenance, your budget for supplies. We need to come up with a plan that will, right off the top, allocate a certain amount of funds to maintaining our buildings.
Well, let's just talk about personnel for a minute. We were chatting off the air about the school committee's vote last June to give the UTL, the United Teachers of Lowell, new contract. And if my understanding is correct, it was a 9% raise over 3 years. Given the other demands on the school budget, such as the maintenance issues, do you think that was a fair contract? And what has the city seen in return from the UTL and the teachers?
Well, I think it was a 4-year span of time, because the first year they didn't take anything. And I think it does come out to be a total of 9% over the whole 4 years. I think, given cost of living increases, that's not an exorbitant amount. And certainly I'm very proud of our teachers and our staff. I think they do tremendous work in our schools. And of course they are the frontline people. They're very important to our ability to move forward as a community, the quality of teaching that we provide to our students. So I personally feel that it was worth the investment, and I think we've been working well together. A part of that whole contract includes the paraprofessionals, which we know are really not paid very well, and we're trying to increase our compensation for that group, as well as provide a pathway to a career advancement we have a program with Middlesex Community College where they can take classes and be reimbursed to go towards becoming our future teachers.
As a potential cost savings, would the school department ever consider moving back to neighborhood schools to save money on busing fees?
So
busing costs, I should say.
I'm just going to speak for myself. I think that as a committee, as a whole, we are looking always at how to be more efficient with transportation. The neighborhood schools issue is always one that, everybody's like, just using the word neighborhood schools. Of course we want to do neighborhood schools, but there's so many other factors that play into that. Not all our neighborhoods, can be supported by neighborhood schools. We have we want to have desegregation in our schools. We want to have mixed demographics in all our schools. And we want to have choices for our families, like with the STEM Academy, different themes that different schools have. So it's not a simple, let's just go back to neighborhood schools, and that solves the transportation issue. But there are always ways to be more efficient. I think one of the things we'll be looking at in this term is perhaps not being just 2 zones, maybe dividing the city up into smaller zones, and perhaps revisiting our citywide school programs. Those are the ones that will probably are the least efficient. For instance, you could live on the Tingsboro line and your child goes to the Pine Arts School, and it might be 8 people on that bus traveling across the city to get to that school. But that's because we do have a number of citywide schools.
That's not very cost effective, though.
Right.
That going to smaller zones, was that the plan put forth by the previous transportation director, John Dakota?
Yes, I think John's plan was to divide the school into the city into different zones, and also take away the citywide schools. And there were some concerns about that because it wasn't, some neighborhoods did not have the same options, as I mentioned, that they might not have as many schools in their neighborhood as other neighborhoods. So we want to try to be equitable about what we do.
But that plan, if I recall, pretty much just got shelved, correct?
Well, we said we wanted to give it further study, yes.
Is that study ongoing?
We have not moved forward with next steps with that, as far as I know. That was kind of, other things took precedence.
And of course, that was
time.
released just before he left to go to work
Right.
for the bus contractor
So
that
it
has the
didn't-
contract with the city.
So we didn't pick that back up again, but it's certainly been an ongoing issue, and I think we will be definitely revisiting that.
We have 2 minutes left. I just want you to touch, because I promised you we could do this. You're the new vice chairman of the school committee. So if the mayor steps down from the podium, that means you are sent to the podium and you wear the crown or the cape.
I get to lead the meeting.
Whatever that is. So what are just a couple of your priorities that you would like to try to see addressed in your new role?
Okay, so my priority is always quality of instruction. That's the core of what we do. So making sure that we have good professional development for our teachers and our building administrators, and that we have supports for those people, that they can do their job and do it well. The maintenance of issue, as we said from the beginning, I think we're at a tipping point, and we need to take the momentum and really get some structures in place that we can deal with these building issues, not only today in this like crisis mode, but ongoing as we go forward. And then the high school.
60 seconds. And the high school?
Always the high school.
How about the superintendent? How's the superintendent doing?
Well, I'm hopeful we're going to have better communication. It seems like the last week, since we did his evaluations in December, we have been getting notifications about things going on more frequently, and I'm
Oh, what a coincidence.
Well, there's always forward. We're always looking to do better and work better together and get the work done. It's important work.
Okay. Jackie Doherty, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. Good luck in your term as vice chairman.
Thank you, Chris,
Okay,
and that
we'll
went
see
by
you.
really fast.
That's it for this edition of LTC News. You can find us on LTC channels 899, online at ltc.org, or get the link on Facebook. I'm Alanna Flood. Thanks for joining us.